The map remembers what people place gently on a high shelf. Wow, just think about that for a second. We're kicking off today's explainer with this absolutely haunting quote from a grandmother named Nana. You know, it perfectly captures something so deeply human. As time takes by after a disaster, our memory of that danger just kind of fades away. We take our worries and we literally put them on a high shelf, out of sight, out of mind. But here's the catch. The geography of the land, the rivers, the slopes, the coastlines, yeah, they don't forget. So what happens when a map remembers a danger that you or your community have completely forgotten? That's the million-dollar question, right? And it sets the stakes for our entire story today. It really challenges us to look past our comfortable everyday routines and confront those hidden risks that might be lying totally dormant right in our very own backyards. Welcome to The Explainer. We're looking at understanding geography for a connected world. And look, we are completely transforming geography today. Forget about those boring school exercises where you just memorize capitals and mountain ranges. No, this is about turning geography into a literal, life-saving future reading skill. We're going to see how reading a map is actually all about reading the messy, complex, interconnected reality of human life. To really get this, let's follow a high school student named Maya. Picture this, it's a rainy afternoon. She's sitting in her classroom staring at a local hazard map for an assignment. And suddenly, it hits her. Her beloved grandmother's house, you know, the place with Sunday lunches and warm bread, is sitting squarely inside a bright blue flood zone. Talk about a jarring moment. It's that exact second where cold, hard academic data just crashes into your deeply personal reality. Which brings us to section 1. When the map remembers. Because let's be honest, it's one thing to see a blue zone on a piece of paper, but it is a whole different ballgame when you realize that blue zone covers your grandmother's living room. Maya's dilemma shows us something absolutely crucial. Hazard maps aren't just these sterile official documents buried on some boring government website. No way. They are urgent warnings. They are literal maps of possible futures that demand we pay attention right now. Moving right along to section 2, reading the real world. Now this is where tools like GIS, that's Geographic Information Systems, really shine. Basically, GIS connects raw data with physical locations. It's like a giant puzzle. By using GIS, Maya can layer all this different data together. And when she does, she sees that her grandmother's house isn't just sitting on a quiet, nostalgic little street. When you layer in the topography and the water data, you see it's directly in the crosshairs of the rising waters from nearby Willow Creek. GIS takes a basic map and turns it into an incredibly powerful X-ray of the land. And this reveals an absolutely crucial contrast in how we actually handle these risks. Check this out. On one side, you have disaster prevention. This is all about trying to stop nature using heavy infrastructure. Think massive seawalls or dams. But on the flip side, you have disaster risk reduction. This approach accepts that, hey, hazards are going to happen, so instead of trying to fight nature, it focuses on preparing society to evacuate and survive through smart planning. You can't always stop the water, right? But you can definitely prepare the people. All right, let's dive into section 3, investigating your living area. So to really understand this, Maya and her friend Lena decide to go investigate Nana's living area. And we don't mean the official city borders here. We're talking about the actual physical range of places she uses every single day. So they walk her usual route right after a heavy storm, and boom, a massive realization. A living area is experienced completely differently depending on who you are. A road that's just an easy 10-minute stroll for a teenager like Maya, that same road might be an exhausting, dangerous hurdle for an older person using a cane. Space isn't just miles and feet, it is massively shaped by access, physical ability, and safety. And without even realizing it, walking in that rain, Maya is executing a textbook local fieldwork study. It's pretty cool, actually. Step 1, she sets a clear purpose, checking on her grandmother's safety. Step 2, she forms a hypothesis. She thinks the route is way more dangerous than it looks on paper. Step 3, she chooses her methods, relying on direct, on-the-ground observation. And finally, step 4, she analyzes the environment to systematically expose the real, hidden flood risks right there in the neighborhood. And what do they find during this fieldwork? Well, some pretty alarming details. They notice these huge puddles pooling up at all the low points on the sidewalk. They look over at Willow Creek, which usually looks so calm and harmless, and see this fast-moving, churning brown water. Right then and there, they start mentally mapping out potential evacuation routes. These direct, real-world observations take an ordinary walk home and turn it into a massive wake-up call about their geographic vulnerability. Let's zoom out a bit for Section 4, Designing Sustainable Communities. Because geography shows us that local, deeply personal problems, like an elderly woman living in a flood zone, are totally tied to the big picture of how we plan our cities. And honestly, it is a complex balancing act with some tough trade-offs. Take compact planning, for example. It's great because it improves surface efficiency, but the burden is that it can completely disrupt deep-rooted family histories if people have to move. Or what about promoting tourism? Sure, it brings in local income, always a plus, but it can also cause overcrowding and a ton of noise that drives locals crazy. It's this constant tug-of-war between growth, safety, and just preserving a community's unique identity. Now, one absolute game changer for areas dealing with an aging, shrinking population is that first strategy we mentioned, compact community planning. The whole idea here is organizing things so that housing, medical care, and transportation are all grouped closer together. It makes essential daily functions way easier to reach. And for aging communities, this is a lifeline. It means maintaining public transit and, super importantly, ensuring that disaster shelters are accessible without forcing people to make some exhausting, dangerous trek. Which brings us to our final part, Section 5, What Maps Cannot Show. Let's bring this all the way back down from city planning to Nana's living room. Maya's about to learn a harsh lesson about the limits of data. They open up Nana's old emergency bag, and what they find is the perfect, scary example of how time just completely erodes our preparedness. They pull out 2 deeply expired water bottles, a flashlight with totally corroded batteries, and, get this, a stash of hard candy that Nana cheerfully insists is for morale. I mean, it's very sweet, but in a real flood, dangerously inadequate. Lena literally looks at the bag and drops this incredible line. This is less of an emergency kit and more of a museum exhibit. It's funny, right? But it hits the nail right on the head. Underneath the humor, there's a very serious, ticking clock. They need to update this disaster risk reduction strategy right now, before the next big storm actually hits. So, the girls sit down with Nana, pull out the map, and start charting actual evacuation routes. And they instantly hit an agonizing dilemma. The absolute shortest route crosses the local bridge, making it super vulnerable to that fast-moving river they saw earlier. The alternate route goes up Oak Lane. Now, it completely avoids the water, which is great, but it features a really steep hill. Imagine trying to rush up a steep, pitch-black hill when you rely on a cane. As Maya points out in her school presentation later that week, this is exactly where the paper map fails us. A map can show you the distance, it can show you the elevation, but you know what it doesn't show? It doesn't show walking speed. It doesn't show darkness or emergency signs buried behind overgrown tree branches. And it definitely doesn't show which of your neighbors live alone and might desperately need someone to knock on their door. At the end of the day, geography has to combine that cold, hard objective data with real human empathy and deep community connection. Because while maps show places, it is the people who live there that actually give them meaning. So we're going to wrap up this explainer with the question for you, and it's a vital one. What is your local map failing to show you? We challenge you to look at your own neighborhood map today with fresh, empathetic eyes. Go out there and discover the human stories, the hidden risks, and the possible futures that it just might be hiding. Thanks so much for joining us.